Phase 2 is all about clarity. By analyzing standards and preparing learning goals or targets, teachers make meaning of and gain clarity about the desired learning outcomes for their students. There are 2 steps in this phase. First, we must analyze the standards, and second, we sketch out the learning targets. Analyzing the standards allows us to make sure we fully understand what the standard is expecting students to learn. If we do not have this clarity when writing assessments, it can cause a lack of alignment. Are we truly assessing what we are expecting students to learn? It is important to analyze the standards with a collaborative group of teachers. Although some of this work may have been provided to you in a proficiency scale, it is still critical to have this discussion with your grade level team. Everyone on the team must have clarity of the expected learning outcomes. This process will help the team look at the standard, determine a focus for the assessment they are designing, and talk about the meaning of the learning goals in terms of what the students would actually do to demonstrate mastery. To begin this process of analyzing a standard, you must first obtain a copy of the standards identified in Phase 1. Then follow this process. We will go into more detail on each of these steps in the next few slides. Step 1 is circle the verbs and other words that indicate what the student should do. And Step 2, underline key concepts, vocabulary words, and contextual information. After these steps are completed, we will begin to sketch out the learning goals. We circle the verbs to determine the cognitive level or rigor required for the students to master the standard. For example, if the standard says to identify literary elements, this is a very different requirement than analyzing literary elements. You would need to assess these cognitive levels differently. The second part of this phase is sketching out the learning goals. A learning goal or learning target are statements describing what students should know and be able to do. These are the knowledge and skills required for students to achieve a standard. These learning goals create the foundation for instruction and assessment. To create a learning goal or target, start with the standards you have analyzed. The intention is to write learning goals that represent the standard. Each goal identifies one part of what students need to do to achieve and master the standard. So essentially, you are breaking down the standard into more manageable parts. We want to look at the smaller pieces that make up the larger standard. This is the process used to make the proficiency scales we use in standards-based grading. Using the action words you circled in the standard will help you break the standard into learning targets. The number of learning goals written for any given statement will vary based on how complex the standard is and how many parts it contains. These learning goals will eventually be what teachers target in the assessments and lessons. Sometimes learning goals or targets need to contain prerequisite skills. These are not directly related to the standard, but are needed for the student to achieve the standard. Once individual learning goals are identified, the team of teachers should determine the complexity and rigor of the goals or targets and rank them in order of difficulty. A learning goals ladder can be used to order these learning goals. The lowest level of the learning target will be at the bottom of the ladder and build in complexity as you go up. This can be a great way to illustrate to students the process they are needing to take to master the standards. It will help create student ownership and a growth mindset. Sometimes the learning ladder is not applicable. In this case, simply identify the criteria embedded in the standard and provide this to students in an outline, checklist, or rubric format. You can visit GoSolutionTree.com/assessments to listen to a screencast modeling Phase 1 and Phase 2 of a reading assessment for 5th grade.